Today we're hosting our first guest, Zain Meer. I'm not sure too much about what Zain does in his free time. One thing that I do know is that he likes to go to the gym and he likes to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Instead of talking about all that, today we decided to hone in on a key backbone of Zain's morality and where his values come from. So we centered the discussion around Zain's objective retelling and moral criteria of Islam, while we fill in some gaps about Hinduism. And a note to consider for the viewer or listener: neither me, Sham, nor Zain are speaking 100% our honest opinion as individuals. We're instead pushing more towards our spiritual opinions. So anything that you may hear in this podcast that sounds offensive, don't take it as an example of our character. And without further ado, let's bring in Zain as our guest.
Talking about, this is our guest. Let's introduce our guest first. Right?
You introduce yourself.
Yeah, you introduce yourself.
My name is Zain. Hold on, I'm gonna get the Oreos real quick. I need these before I start. Okay, so a couple days ago, me and Sean just had a very introspective conversation. So he decided that I would be a good host for the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, not host, guest.
Yes.
We were talking about, I guess he was learning about Hinduism, I was learning about Islam, and then he was also talking about Islamic history. But we can start with what we were just talking about before this. So we were, he saw the poker table, he saw some poker.
Okay.
Yeah, he saw something poker related, and he asked, because gambling is haram in Islam, right?
Yeah.
So he asked, what's the view of it in Hinduism? I explained to him. Do you know the story in the Mahabharata?
I know.
Okay, so basically,
like how they lost everything?
yeah, they lost their bit. The essential part is that the protagonist in the story, I guess, they lost their entire kingdom gambling. So, these texts are what we're supposed to look at and learn from. Yeah. So, it's, you could say, not dharmic.
Yeah. So.
And he asked if it was forbidden, right? Or he asked if it's what would happen.
Does that mean it's forbidden?
So I was explaining to him that there's nothing really forbidden.
In Hinduism?
Yeah, because it's just...
It's strongly advised not to go against it.
It's not an advice, bro. It's just this is dharma and this is how you should live.
Sure, yeah.
But the there's no... okay, so what do you... when something is forbidden in Islam, what does that mean? You're not a Muslim if you do it?
No. That means that if you do it, then it's a sin.
It's a sin.
Yeah, so...
And what does a sin mean?
So a sin entails that... so the idea is that, you've heard that, right? You have one angel on your right side, one angel on your left side, right?
I haven't heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I thought that was just a thing. So you have one angel. So you have two angels that are always watching you. Okay. And one is documenting all your good deeds, and one is documenting all your bad deeds.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have this documentation of your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do something that's haram,
Yeah.
it's going to be documented as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something bad that you did.
Yeah.
You have so many good deeds, this many bad deeds. And it's not that, if your bad deeds outweigh your good deeds, that means you go to hell. It's not a calculation like that. But the idea is that it gets written down as something you did bad. There are nuances to it. For example, you have 6 hours, and if you do a good deed, it gets written down immediately. Or even if you think about doing a good deed, that can also get written down. If you do a bad deed, you have 6 hours to repent before it actually gets written down. So within that 6 hours, if you repent, then you actually don't get, and it doesn't get written at all. So then it won't be presented upon you on the day of judgment.
How would you repent?
So there's two types, so you have minor repentance and major repentance. So if you do something that's considered a major sin, for example, adultery, so cheating on your wife,
Right.
or interest, right? if you do that, you have to do something called tawbah.
Meaning like taking interest on a loan,
Mm-hmm.
or collecting interest on
Collecting interest from someone. Collecting interest from someone would be definitely worse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So that is a process called tawbah, and it's just more of like a sincere form of forgiveness. So, there's no like puja, or like there's no like ceremony that involves anyone, but you just kind of sit there, and you have to promise that like you won't do it again, and you just have to understand the severity of it. Basically, you just have to feel bad, and so long as you can do good deeds to make up for it, but as long as you're demonstrating. And so there's certain things you say, like you've probably heard people say like astaghfirullah or something like that.
Yeah.
So that is just asking God to forgive you. So you can say that. There's certain, like, we call them du'as. So there's certain like things you can say, but the thing about tawbah is that for every time you commit a major sin, you have to have like a moment of repentance for that specific time. But when it comes to minor sins, like like say like watching pornography or something, all your minor sins can kind of be forgiven in like one instance. So you just like you ask for forgiveness for all your sins, and all your minor sins kind of get washed away. So like there's like a saying that says like if you recite this certain thing after each prayer, then all of your sins will be forgiven, even if they amount to as much foam as there is in the sea. But that's not necessarily including major sins, because for every time you do that, that entails its own repentance. But for all the minor sins, if you just do like a basic astaghfirullah, like forgive me for my sins, things like that, like you're saying between yourself and God, then that goes away.
Okay.
But as far as major sin goes, that just requires, so that's the main difference.
I see.
So, like for us, the idea is karma. So if you do something bad, then that exact same bad thing will happen to you. So, if you are racist to someone, and then in the future,
someone will be
racist to you. That's the idea. It's not. So it differs in the idea that in this case, sins are preventing you from going to heaven. This is just in the material world alone, the same thing will happen to you.
At some point, at some life.
Yeah. Like, have you heard?
Does karma carry over?
Does it carry over?
Between lifetimes?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, so I guess we believe that if you do good, eventually you're going to be rewarded for it. It may be so that we have dunya, you know what that is, and then we have the afterlife is called akhirah. So at some point, any good you do, you're going to be rewarded for it. You might have rewards in the dunya, or there might be waiting for you in the akhirah. Who knows?
You don't know.
But, like, for example, if I do good, right? What I'm trying to say is I might get rewarded here. Allah might give me, like, riches, I might have a beautiful wife, like, or just, like, not physically beautiful, but, like, I might have a wife that I'm very pleased with. I might be very happy, have a good family, and I'm staying with my prayers and everything. That can be a form of Allah rewarding you right now. But what I'm saying is you might commit a lot of good deeds and you feel like you're not seeing that. Or you feel like nothing good is coming to you. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that reward is being saved for you later on. So if you do something bad, something bad can happen to you. It's all the will of Allah. Whatever He decides, that's what happens. So He can decide that He might do that same thing to you, or whatever. I mean, it's already been decided, right? But if you seek forgiveness for that sin, you won't be punished for it in the dunya or the akhirah. If you seek forgiveness and you're forgiven.
Okay. So in terms of like for karma, like the time period in which you're going to receive the like equal or whatever equal in karma, or at least is what I believe, that like Bhagwan will make sure it happens at the right time.
Yeah. So I guess it's similar in that way.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you
Even if you use the same example, like someone is racist to you, and karma, or by karma, that same thing should happen to you, Bhagwan will ensure it happens at the right time.
yeah, like often whenever
In order for you to grow the most, or like spiritually grow the most.
okay, I guess I kind of have like a question that steps off of it, and a lot of like even in the Brothers Karamazov, a big argument for like against like the existence of a God is that like there's suffering that exists in the world. So what does Islam say about that?
Yeah. So there's different levels to heaven, right? And like so the highest level is called Jannat al-Firdaus. And there's about I think there's 7 heavens, or maybe 8. And so I mean, if I look at the life that I have right now, and I look at somebody that's in Syria or Palestine or anywhere, you know, it's going to be a lot easier for that person to enter the highest level of Jannah than it is for me, because of the hardships that they've endured in this life. So for every hardship you go through, every time you're sick, you know, every difficulty you go through, there's good, you get rewarded for that. So I mean, it was even said somewhere, I don't remember the source, but like sometimes say Allah wants you to go to this, you know, the 6th heaven or the 7th heaven, and the good deeds that you're going to surmount in your entire lifetime are only going to qualify you for the 4th or the 5th one according to His judgment. So throughout your entire lifetime, you haven't committed enough good deeds to reach this level that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to go to. So what He will do is He'll send a hardship your way, or He'll send a difficulty your way in order to qualify you for that higher level, because you haven't gotten there in good deeds.
So then does everyone have a chance at that higher level?
Sure. I mean, why not? It's just when we live really easy lives, you know, we can, of course we can surmount good deeds, but it's a little bit more difficult because our desire for God is a little bit harder, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, something that is said, it's like if you don't pray, you know, you're far away from the religion, but you're still having a really good life, you should be afraid, because that means that Allah, He's given you the dunya, but that means He might not have given you the akhirah. And obviously, you know, one is eternal. So
is it balanced then, like for you and then whoever is living in Palestine or Syria?
yeah, I mean,
Meaning like you might have the opportunity to
I can go to Jannat al-Firdaus, right?
yeah,
But because of the hardships they've endured
it's easy.
and the fact that they've stayed with their faith,
yeah.
they probably deserve that,
More,
right?
Okay.
So like, maybe the idea is that if I went through those hardships, I might have lost my religion or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So maybe I'm not as deserving of it, and that's why we're placed in these different positions.
I mean, for us, it's like your soul. So we believe in rebirth, right? So you get rebirth. I'm good.
All you
You get reborn into different lives, so that you experience all these things. So you experience like the entire array of experiences.
yeah.
Your soul does. You won't remember it in your current lifetime, but your soul will. And when your soul has reached this like ultimate, like you've experienced everything there is, then that's when it becomes liberated. And then there's different beliefs. So some people believe your soul is different from God. Some people believe your soul becomes one with God itself.
Yeah.
But the end goal is your soul is liberated.
So is everybody's soul born at the same time?
Meaning what?
Okay, so
I don't know. I thought there existed a belief that all of us are the same, and that you experience a different life, or like you're experiencing a life that I might experience in the future based off my karma, or you're experiencing a life that I might have experienced in the past based off my karma.
Yeah.
So like we're all
That's a
one.
belief.
Yeah.
like maybe, like, I guess if everybody has their own soul, then like if you've lived 70 lives, if your soul has gone through so many, is it possible that my soul was born at one point and it's only gone through 3 lives, or that everybody's soul started at this one point, and we've all just been living different lives since then.
So you're asking are me and you at the same point?
Like how?
In terms of how many life works.
Okay, like
you've
if there's
experienced.
a baby that's born, right?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that that baby's a completely new soul, or is that baby certainly the reincarnation of someone else?
While he's thinking, I'll give my opinion.
Okay.
Or like the so this is what I personally believe in, so this is what I know a lot more about. And it's saying basically like Bhagwan is like collective consciousness. And it's like we experience like everything, like all of life. So I could be shaman in my next life, or like in some lives later down. So it's not like there's a new soul, it's just we're all the same soul and we're experiencing everything. And this entire, like it's just created for us to experience all that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's multiple belief systems about that,
Yeah.
but I'm like inclined to agree with that as well.
Okay.
More question?
Oh, we were just okay. I guess let's get to the controversy. We were discussing this before, and it's a question that comes up a lot in terms when it comes to Islam. But Prophet
sure.
Muhammad and his wife, the age difference is something that's like what is it, like beating stick for Islam. Beating stick for
Right.
Hinduism is caste system,
Yeah.
right? Beating stick is for Islam is their prophet, or like not their prophet, but his marriage.
Yeah, just specific this one instance.
Yeah. So let's address that, I guess, from your perspective.
And I guess after that we can address the caste system as well.
I
Yeah. And so something that I find interesting, I guess to set up my argument, is that if you look at like the time, like Islam has always been divisive, not within, but it has always caused controversy, or it has always been, a source of like conflict from the outside. So if you look at the time that the Prophet was alive, there were a lot of attacks on his character and the things that he did and the practices that he had. But one thing that people actually never attacked him on was Aisha, and their marriage being at the age when she was 9. So like this argument is fairly recent, and I contribute it to the fact that we're becoming more and more detached from what their way of living was opposed to ours. So just to clear off anything, just to clear any assumptions, she wasn't like a prepubescent child or anything like that. But she was of she was past puberty. But the idea is that was not an atypical age for people to get married. So she actually was about to have another marriage before she married Muhammad. So it wasn't something that she was thrown into, but it was just about the time that people got married back then. And obviously she was mature enough physically, which is like, how do you, mental maturity, like I could make the argument that she was mentally mature, but I think that's irrelevant. You could say that about like a 5-year-old, so that's too subjective. But what was I talking about? So I was saying,
Yeah.
she was
she was physically matured.
She's physically matured, and it was like the custom at the time. And I think to draw a like comparison, I guess.
so
Okay.
so she
Go
was
ahead.
she was gonna get married anyway,
Okay.
and most people did around that time. Even it was not just girls, but also men. And then also you have to take into account like the lifespan of people in those eras and stuff like that, to where like even if you look at like colonial America in the 1800s, boys were getting married at like 12 or 13, okay? And this is just a couple of 100 years ago, So if you want to take that back even farther to 1,400 years ago, you just have to use presentism, which was something I was telling Sham about. It's just like this ideology that you have to take into account like the customs of a time, and just everything that surrounds that time before you can start objectively judging it.
Yeah, I was gonna also draw an example from like colonial America to justify your point. And like our cultures and customs are so different from back, or even from colonial America.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you're saying that you can't really judge something like that based off our cultures and customs today.
Yeah, I mean, there was slavery, right?
Yeah, and slavery was just considered.
Yeah, I mean, we were just so, there's a huge customs gap. And specifically, it bothers me when Christians make that argument, or when Christians make the argument of multiple wives, because they don't. I'm like, I don't want to make a general argument or generalize about Christians, but there is like a lack of education on their own scripture, because the way the religion is they learn a lot from their pastor, and a lot of people don't like sit down and read the Bible themselves. So maybe people would have read that like King Solomon had hundreds of wives, but they don't, and then they attack Islam when the Bible hasn't made a claim on it, and we're just the ones that actually decided to restrict it to 4,
Right.
and even discourage that practice for most men.
Okay. So like for me, I would concede the points that, right, she was of physical maturity, and the customs were different then. Okay, all right, I guess that's the point I really want to discuss, right? So in colonial America, these boys were marrying at a younger age,
Right.
but we're looking at the age difference, right? So like I don't know if they don't know the exact age, but like approximately how old was Muhammad at the time?
So I think we should know the exact age of Muhammad. The thing is, nobody knows the exact age
Of Aisha.
Yeah, because I mean it's another customs thing.
Her
so
life
where,
wasn't documented.
huh?
Or like
It was, but it was just like people weren't very concerned about birthdays,
yeah.
especially because Arabs, they ran on a different calendar as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
not
like-
to cut you off too, it's like there's still people in the world,
They don't know
modern
their
world, that
birthdays.
don't know their
Yeah,
birthdays.
I mean I don't know, like a lot of us immigrant kids, like our parents don't know
Yeah,
when their
right.
birthdays are.
Yeah.
You might have a general idea of what year they were born or something like that.
Mhm.
But I don't want to generalize. I would just.
I don't want to generalize either, but it is a
my
common.
dad knows his birthday, but like my dad's brother doesn't.
Yeah, it's a common occurrence for them not to know.
It might be like a rural versus
A rural
city
thing,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like some people make the argument that Aisha was 15 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
So there's room for speculation, but if you're arguing about the age gap, then the age gap is always there.
Yeah. So would it be safe to say that the age gap was at least 20 years?
Yeah, like under any speculation.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think that's what people are
Finding an issue with that.
I have an issue with the age gap. So like for me personally, I explained this to Zain also. We had
Right,
this
right,
discussion, but like marriage is a thing between two people. Between two people of similar age.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because if you're at that similar age point, when you live together, you're gonna like grow together, like spiritually, like just your relationship itself, love,
Yeah.
like based on my beliefs, that's what I believe marriage is, right? That
Yeah, and obviously I tend to fall in line with what
Yeah.
you're saying.
so that's for me, that's what marriage is. And I think a lot of people or a lot of different faiths would have the same belief that that's what marriage is. I mean, I don't know, like I'm not versed in like Christianity or Judaism.
I'm like pretty well versed in Christianity, and I wouldn't say, like I don't think they have like a strong thing on marriage, as he was saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like, they didn't lie out specific principles.
Okay,
Like
okay.
this is what marriage is.
Yeah.
Like it is a religious thing, but it's not like it's like something where they're saying like you're gonna share like your values with her, and she's gonna share her values with you, whatever. But it's not like there's no specification on age.
Okay. I would
Yeah.
think that a lot of older cultures would tend to agree with what I said, including like Hindus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess
I mean, so you think that like the fact that he married someone, I mean, I'm saying it goes both ways. Like his first wife was a lot older than him,
yeah.
and then now this wife is younger than him.
Yeah. So like it can't be. So some would argue that that's like there's like sexism present, I guess that argument doesn't stand because we see both sides of it.
Yeah, or even like the idea that his first wife was the one that proposed to him.
Yeah.
Or that his first wife was his employer.
Oh,
So like a lot of people think that Islam doesn't give. I'm gonna just digress for a second.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people think that Islam doesn't give women rights, but like rights to work or something like that. But like his first wife, he was solely married to her for 20 years until she died, and she was also his employer, and like she owned the company that he was working for.
Yeah.
So like any notion like that is, you know, you can typically shut that down pretty quickly.
So, yeah. So we're not looking at the issue of like sexism here when it comes
But
to
just
marriage.
an age gap in general.
Just the principles of marriage.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing about Islam is that everything is clear cut, right? This is right.
This is wrong.
This is wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can't say that marrying somebody 20 years younger than you or older than you is wrong.
Oh, like definitely.
This is like this is law, right? Like
Yeah.
what we do is law. Like
Yeah.
in Sharia law, it is illegal to marry someone that is prepubescent,
Yeah.
or technically, like it's illegal to cheat on your wife. Like that's a death sentence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the evidence threshold for these things are pretty high,
Right.
so it's like you don't get prosecuted that often,
Mhm.
and you're not supposed to talk about your sins either. So like if you did cheat on your wife, you should try to do your best to not make sure everybody knows about that. But it's not allowed for us. Like it's not. Well, I guess God. My belief is that God decided that that's not important. So
Yeah,
I'm going to agree
that's
with
what I was
that, and
gonna
I
say.
just think that
Yeah.
it's not something that you can be punished by,
Okay.
or not something that you're deserving punishment of.
Okay.
So the prophet is a messenger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's supposed to show us the things that we're allowed to do, the things that we should do. So is he implying through this? Is he implying that you should marry someone that's 20 years younger than you or 20 years older than you? I mean, no, because it's going both ways. So there's no preference for another. I think what the point of that is that it's not the most relevant thing,
Okay.
or that we're not going to tell you what's right or wrong.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's room for creative liberty,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not something that God will judge you on.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to judge you on how much older or younger your wife is than you.
Okay.
So that's what that ruling is, and I guess it's just irrelevant for us.
Okay.
And whatever cultural beliefs we have about marriage, we can impose that upon ourselves.
Right. So I guess like then my question is, so like a lot of Christians today would like find that wrong, but then is that just it's not because of Christianity, it's because of their culture today?
They would find a large age gap wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not because of Christianity.
Okay. Are there stories in the Bible?
Yeah, so Mary was 12 years old and her husband,
Was she 12? I thought she was 15.
well,
Around that age.
Okay.
I don't know the exact age,
Yeah.
but do you know how old her husband was?
Older.
It was like 90.
Wait, no. Like Joseph? He wasn't 90.
Yeah, Joseph was 90.
He was 90? I thought he was,
Okay.
he was like
Before our
30. Well, we
sons.
have
Okay.
Jamie.
Let's get this right. Okay.
Yeah, he's like 20.
No, not Joseph.
Okay.
36 to 42.
Oh, this is what I'm looking at for some reason.
Says Joseph man.
I don't know where I got this info from.
He's not. I don't think he's 90.
But this is like selection bias.
Look what the argument against it is.
So there's nothing about their age in the Bible, but they had an age gap, right? So like,
I think historically, there might have been some evidence. But I think, yeah, he was like. We know Mary was like.
Says Joseph was most likely.
yeah, now it's saying it's 20.
She was a minor to today's standards.
I guess they don't know how old he was.
So it's like it could have been like 15 and 20.
Yeah, it's like it. Yeah,
The
it's
assumption
like
based on
15.
practices at the time, but how much older is unknown, so they don't really know.
He's like 20 to 30, I'd say.
20 to 30. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you went to Christian school, so that's
Mhm.
what you learned.
That's
He would know. I don't know where I get this 12 to 90 thing from.
It's still an age gap
Yeah,
though.
it's
Like
weird.
I mean, it's like,
There's not. Yeah.
I mean,
15
somebody's talking about that number, but
15 and a 20-year-old basically, or like in the mid 20s, you could say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, like the Quran and the Bible, like all these stories are similar. So I'm sure some instance of it exists somewhere, but there's nowhere in the Bible that discourages
Yeah.
like a large age gap,
Yeah.
right?
I think most Christians, the reason why because their principles on age and marriage, there's like a hole there. Like it's not something that they thought was important enough to mention in the Bible.
Yeah.
So I guess they make up whatever, like their opinions on something like that through using today's laws and culture.
And it's not like a widely held Muslim belief that there should be an age gap in your marriage,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It doesn't matter.
most of us are. I mean, like my parents, their age gap is within a couple of months.
Yep.
Yeah, but my grandma. I mean, they're all pretty close. They're all within like 5 years, which some Americans will do way more than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's not a religious matter.
Okay.
I think that's like not a,
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it's just like something that we don't really care,
Yeah.
And like,
Unless it's below or unless it's prepubescent.
unless
Yeah.
you're prepubescent. It's like an age of consent thing.
Yeah.
It's like after 18,
Yeah.
there's free reign,
Yeah.
right? So like if you're 90, you can marry someone who's 18,
Yeah.
and that age gap becomes irrelevant after that certain point.
Yeah.
And even in America,
Irrelevantly, like legally wise.
Yeah.
even in America, there's 3 states. It's like I know Idaho is one of them. But there's a few states where you can get married at any age with parental permission, and that's how Islam works. Not that you can get married at any age, but that like as long as you have parental consent and
Yeah.
you're post-pubescent. So like I guess it seems to be in accordance with even modern day law.
Yeah.
And something I think, like an idea that I like to think about is if you look at, like, I mean, we share a lot of the same cultural beliefs, the same cultural practices, like whether or not it's derived from Hinduism or it is, and like nowadays, those beliefs are held as conservative. But if we look at the course of history, because we know from the Quran that these beliefs have been ours for 1,400 years. We know that for a fact. If we look at the time from when it was revealed to probably the 18 or 1900s, it was like a radically liberal belief. But now we're moving into an era where we're seen as conservative and even archaic sometimes. So I think it's interesting how, like people like to see us as backwards, but that's just because we're firm in our belief. And even when we were, like radically liberal, we were still firm in that same belief. So it's irrelevant to us what other people think.
Yeah.
So do you think that same goes for your cultural beliefs, or this is what we've thought for 1,500 years, and now the Western world is telling me that I'm backwards or that I'm behind now just because they've decided to progress. But I think that this has always been right.
Yeah, I would say most like Sanatanis are firm in their belief. Like they're not like, oh, because the West said we're wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you said like our beliefs as well as your beliefs, they're being held today as conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I agree with.
Yeah, I think like just like the ideas that have been like, there was like I think it's just probably throughout most of history that like the ideas that we've held haven't been accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we're moving in that direction, I'd like to ask what or your view, like your spiritual view on homosexuality is.
Yeah, so there's that's a sexual desire that someone can have, right? If you're a man, you can have this sexual desire to be with another man. Okay, I'm afraid about this going on air right now.
That's fine. If it gets like too bad,
we can just cut this part out. If I have to,
like
but
generally curious.
If it gets a lot of views,
listen.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
We have to understand, and we accept this nowadays, that not every type or form of our sexual desires is okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes you can think about incest or pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, And not that I'm comparing gay people to pedophiles.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But the idea is that not every sexual desire that humans have is okay. So, you know, if you have this sexual desire, most men, right, a vast majority of men have an intense sexual desire for a woman.
Right.
So we've been given a means through marriage, and we can pursue that. And any other form of sexual desire is deemed as unokay.
So like you can have the desires, but you can't act on it?
You can have the desires. That's not wrong. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, like, it is what it is. And like I was saying, when God gives you a hardship and you use that as an opportunity to turn to Him, then you're going to get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
So if you look at it through that lens, instead of trying to force everybody to tell you that it's okay, you know? So instead of just like trying to perpetuate the belief that love is love and all forms of love are okay, maybe it's just a struggle that you're going through. I mean, that's the Islamic belief. And we don't really have that problem, but you know, like who knows what direction this shit is heading.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Where people just keep pushing onto us that any form of sexual desire I have is okay.
I see a lot.
It gets vastly more aggressive. Like every single year it gets more and more aggressive.
Yeah, I've seen, like to add, like, I don't know, this might actually get me canceled, but there's a lot of pedophiles out there that don't actually act on any of their urges, and they try to go get help.
Yeah.
Like psychological treatment or whatever.
Yeah. And like the argument that it's unfair that like in Islam that straight people get to fulfill their desires and gay people don't, like that's true. That it is unfair. But that's why you'll get rewarded if you don't act on that.
And even like with the idea that like straight people get to fulfill their desires, there's still a lot of sexual desires for straight people that's forbidden.
Like,
you know? And that, and also just like cheating on your wife, or even dating before marriage. Like there's like we have all these, like there's all these rules.
Exactly.
So
it's just like there's restrictions. There's a lot of restrictions on sexual desires.
Yeah.
And I mean, somebody like that has already abandoned, you know, sex before marriage or something. Like society or the world, the society that we live in America, they've already moved past that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're specifically like targeting gay people and we're saying because you're gay this is wrong. Like, no, this can be, you know, it's just a hardship that people have.
Yeah.
And it can go the right way.
Yeah. Like, even if you wanted to like argue against that, you could say that like straight people in America like act on, or they have more rights to act on their sexual desires than like straight Muslims. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
or even Hindus, bro. It's not. I mean, so like for us, it's just been culturally passed down, right? Dating's it's not allowed. I mean, my parents, my belief. I feel like most people, it's not allowed dating before marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just like a lot of.
Or is it dating before marriage, or is it like the wrong partner, whatever? Like you can't date multiple people. Because then how else are you gonna get to know someone? Is it arranged?
Bro, yeah. That's okay. The belief is basically that it's not forced. Forced and arranged marriage are very different.
Yeah, that's also hold on.
Yeah, arranged marriage, the way it worked for my parents. So at any point, the boy or girl is allowed to say yes or no. Okay, but the parents set it up because, and this is true. All right, like arranged marriage couples are not for all. Okay, it works out whatever, but generally arranged marriage couples work out better than like if you're especially if you're looking at like the love marriage couples in America. Like what is the divorce rate?
Divorce rates are high. Yeah.
What is it?
52%.
Is it really?
Something like that.
So more people get divorced.
Than sticking together. Okay, so this idea that parents know best is not radical, right? And the other idea is that you'll grow to love whoever, right? Like I'm so comfortable in this idea that, right? Like I was talking about this with someone, okay?
35 to 50%.
That's crazy.
It's like unreal.
Yeah. I was talking about this with someone, all right? And they're like, "You would really be okay with an arranged marriage?" I'm so comfortable in that idea, bro. Okay, that you'll like grow to love this person. If you both have the same values, right? Then and you get to know them. So to your like question, you don't get to know them. You like during the initial meeting, you can even have a couple meetings. It can be however long, right?
Yeah, before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before. Like, I mean, that's how you get to know them. But you don't need to spend time. You don't need to spend 3 years with them to know if you're going to get married to them or not.
Yeah, because I've actually heard from Lex Friedman and she's like some psychologist for the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and she's saying that a lot of people initially in America, at least, whenever they get married, there's always like a honeymoon period for like 1 or 2 or 3 years, at least mostly before they have their children, where it's not like rational thinking.
Yeah.
And they just do everything because they're in love with the other person.
Well,
Eventually, that fades down, and then they realize that they're incompatible in some way.
Yeah.
Well, I think the main problem, because even like a Muslim or an arranged marriage will have a honeymoon. When you first marry your wife, like you'll probably have that phase. But the thing is that we're not so fixated on love, to where like all these American marriages, everything's about love, and when they fall in love, and when that feeling goes away, because it's going to go away, they think that everything's falling apart.
Yeah.
But our marriages aren't surrounded by this idea of being like head over heels over each other.
Yeah, exactly. I believe in love, but not the way Americans do. Their concept of love,
It's just dopamine.
it's dopamine. It is dopamine.
Yeah.
It's that whatever they're feeling like during their honeymoon or like that honeymoon period, they think that if that fades away, then love is gone.
Right.
They don't
Which it will.
understand.
It's going to fade away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't understand. They don't understand that love like changes, right? Even when that fades away, you still love each other, but in a different way. And that's why I was talking about like the age thing earlier. So when you're between the same like age period, both of you will understand that together,
Yeah.
right? So like, okay, so you're in your 20s, right? You get married, you have this feeling like head over heels like feeling for each other, right? 20 to 30. Americans would think once that fades away, that, or even Western culture, you don't have to say Americans, we're using America as a culture, like an example. But Americans would
British
think,
people are just as bad.
yeah. But once that fades away, it's still love, but in a different way. In your 30s and 40s, living together as a husband and wife, it's love, but not in the same way, is what I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. That's their main problem. They just chase dopamine and it crashes.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think later on in life, it's more about like your children and like pushing your values on your children, or like making sure that they live a good life as well. And
Children are like very important to us,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you destroy, and I think a big problem, like, in a lot of like Western marriages is like the finances, where like you and your wife like split everything. I feel like that's like a huge source of problem.
Yeah.
So I feel like with Indian marriages, like I know that it's often that the wife and the husband works for everything, but like does your mom, like if your mom's working, does she split half the mortgage and shit like that?
No,
No.
she doesn't.
Like that's not how it works. So I think that's like when people, like as our society is trying to make women more and more masculine, it causes a lot of problems, because like a man is doing something that he's inherently not very good at, and the woman is doing something that she's inherently not very good at, and then they find out, hey, I'm not doing a good job. Okay, well, let's divorce.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that's not how it works.
and even then, stuff like therapy rates have gone up like incrementally because of something like that. And
Yeah.
therapy is typically a feminine thing too. So if a man goes to therapy, you
Yeah.
can't. They're not treated the same way, or like the way that a masculine person would be treated.
Yeah.
And
So I think there's a lot of problems with Western marriages.
yeah,
That dopamine thing is definitely one of them, but their failure to like, I mean, just have roles in general. I mean, like, I'm not saying that. I mean, I obviously believe that like the Islamic roles are superior, but that doesn't even have to be the most important thing. Like, it doesn't have to be that. You know, it's just like they fail to set any boundaries. You know, and I do think that like those roles are gonna work the best, like the way I described them.
I think like some very religious Christians are like different, you know, for talking about like Southern America or even
Also-
rural South.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like they wouldn't be like the rest of, or when we're talking about Western culture,
General
we're
Western
talking
culture.
about like non-religious, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about like general, and I would say they can be Christians, but they're not really Christian.
Yeah.
Like they're not following all the like rules to Christianity.
Yeah, and also if we're saying, as Zain was saying earlier, he was saying that our values are typically held as conservative now.
Yeah.
So we can say that we're talking about liberalism in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also like I'll go into this notion of like hijabis and whatever, how
that
extreme
is,
it would be, to where like if you look at the way that Islamic marriages work, or like the idea is that to simplify it as much as possible in Islam, men are not allowed to look at women, and like women are not allowed to show themselves off. Okay, so a woman has to, you know, protect her beauty as much as possible, and a man has to, you know, like avoid himself from falling into that as much as possible. And I feel like that it works so beautifully to where if you're in a marriage, right, your wife, nobody's ever going to see her body the way you will, or even her, like, just her general looks, and you're never going to look at another woman the way you look at her physically. And so I think it's perfect because in an idealistic world, every woman wants a man that never looks at another girl, and every guy wants a girl that, you know, another man will never look at. And so I think that actually ends up working really well.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think I generally disagree about like saying, like, I don't hold myself, like, if I say that I'm a conservative, like, I don't like to label my political opinion, or like my opinions in general, under any one basis. So then I can say, like, I understand where you're coming from, but I think, again, like, it's fine for us to feel something like that, like some sort of urge, but it's not good for us to act on it. So I don't see the point in, like, a woman covering herself up from head to toe.
Okay. Here's
I can argue.
Alright, let me say something first from
Sure.
our thing, okay? I believe that, I don't know for whatever reason, but like humans have become like more sexual, okay?
Mhm.
This is way back. We're not talking about now,
Right.
okay? So like in Vedic times, like the women in Vedic civilization wore one drape, okay? So their like breasts were basically free, and then the cloth just went over it, kind of like almost like a shawl,
Right.
and then it tied around their lower body.
Okay.
But look at the ethnic clothing that we're wearing now,
like
right?
saris and stuff.
After Vedic times, yeah. I don't know if it was, yeah, I think after Vedic times, that's when women started wearing two garments, okay?
Mhm.
So one to cover the breasts and upper body, and then the lower, like the same lower they have, and then the shawl over it, okay? So I think there was a reason for that, and it's not because, like, so I think the reason for that might have become that sometime as humans, not any group of we're not talking about like one group or one like tribe.
Yeah.
As humans, we became, like, our culture shifted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, and I think that culture shift might have to do with, like, I don't know if it's with us becoming, I think it might be, yeah, I would argue it is because we became more sexual, and I guess, you know, like, I'd have to think on that, but I don't know, I'm not sure about the reason for why yet, but it did happen, like, it did change.
And so going back to Rishi's argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you believe that like a woman should be able to, you know, like freely dress however she want, and it's like a man that shouldn't be the one looking.
But I think, like, in terms of values, there should be at least like an extent to which, like, she's covering herself. But I think in Islam especially,
It's, like, too extreme.
too excessive.
Yeah, I mean the idea is that like it's not even explicitly stated that a woman needs to cover herself from head to toe, but
Okay.
what we say, no, but we still do.
Yeah.
And the reason we say that is because what we're instructed is a woman has to cover her beauty.
Mhm.
So in Islam, you know, like a woman is very treasured, and we want to protect that as much as possible, and they're
Yeah.
very revered. Like there's even a quote from the Prophet Muhammad, and it says that lucky is the woman whose first child is a girl. So like if you think about the historical context, that means a lot, because if you look at like Arabia at that time, and even like China up until pretty recent years,
Mhm.
people would have a daughter and they would kill her
Yeah.
because it was a daughter and she can't provide value to me.
Mhm.
So now you come in with like a completely different level of respect for women, or even I don't remember the exact question, but somebody asked the Prophet like, who should I spend most of the time with, or like who should I talk to? I don't remember what the question was, but the Prophet said your mother, then your mother, then your mother again, then he said your father. So we have this different like belief about women, and we also have this we don't have naivety about men.
Mhm.
We don't feel naive about men, where we accept that men have bad desires, and we accept that there's ill-minded men that will do ill things,
Mhm.
and we're not going to be naive and like allow, you know, or advise a woman to like dress however she pleases, because we know that that type of harmfulness exists that can come for her. So like I feel like as men we know how disgusting some men can look at women,
Right.
and there's, you know, some shit that our friends say that like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know, and so we can't be naive about that. We can't be like, oh no, men just need to be good,
Mhm.
so then the woman can do whatever we want, because unfortunately they're just not going to be. You know, is that like a problem because they can't fulfill their own sexual desires? Who knows? But like it's like if I and I obviously like if I walk, this is like something like if I walk through downtown Chicago with like money in a suitcase and money everywhere, and if I get robbed, is that my fault that I got robbed?
Yeah. I get what
No,
you're
it's
saying,
it's
yeah.
like technically it's not my fault.
It's not your fault.
Did I do anything illegal or wrong?
No, but it's like you're acting on their desire.
But
So-
you're inducing a situation that's unfavorable.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought about what I was saying earlier. I was like waffling a bit, but like here's what I say. Like the reason, because he said that, you know, there's bad men, and that like
Mhm.
prompted me to think, you know. So I think the reason that our cultural clothing shifted is because of the era we live in, right?
Okay.
So as like Hindus, we believe in the Yuga cycle,
Mhm.
and the era we live in is Kali Yuga, right? The era of suffering.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where everything deteriorates. So I think the reason our like cultural clothing shifted to like cover up more was because men are becoming worse.
Yeah.
Maybe at that time, like men didn't have like thoughts like that, all right, or men weren't bad like that because it was a different age.
But it's also possible that people were, you know, getting married quicker, so men had.
Well, this is Vedic time and then right after, so it's
Yeah.
not much of a difference in terms of that.
And yeah, that's actually really smart.
So
But
that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that like we're deteriorating, and then like if you look at America within like a smaller microcosm, they want to like liberate clothing even more. Like I don't know about that.
yeah,
like that's
exactly.
even worse.
Like
in that context.
what he was saying about walking to downtown Chicago with money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that for like guys it's just all right to just walk around shirtless, and for women like to just wear bikinis everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's not. It's
But
I
I
understand,
guess
like-
like the idea in Islam is like protecting your assets.
yeah. Like,
Sari is the same way. Sari is to like, I think you can look it up, but there's like a metaphor for the sari, or a reason why I wear the sari. Your body is like the universe, I'm pretty sure, for women, and then like sari is like 3-piece, right?
Mhm.
So I'm pretty sure like every like each part of that sari like means something, and
Okay.
you're like almost like protecting your universe.
Okay. To shift the conversation away from clothing a little bit,
Yeah.
I think this is something that I want to get your opinion on, and it kind of ties together like liberalism, for example, and like how you said like men and women work together. I think in ancient times especially, it was always like the woman was supposed to like go after the man or something like I don't know how to like,
Is it really?
It's not like the woman is supposed to go after the men, but okay, like especially nowadays it's like the man wants the woman. Like the man, like our culture is becoming more and more sexual.
You're saying before it was the opposite?
It was supposed to be the opposite, typically. Like,
I don't know.
for example, like an arranged marriage, it's the woman getting married to a really successful man.
Wait, I don't think success plays into it. Arranged marriage, how it works is like the guy comes to the woman's house with his family, and then yeah. So I would say even back
Even
then.
with like that example I was talking about, how the prophet's wife proposed to him.
Yeah.
I think even for that time, it wasn't the most normal.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like irregular. Okay.
I mean, I think actually, I just don't think they cared very much.
Yeah. I don't think it matters either.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's like a trend, because also like there's instances. It might have been more common back then for a man to ask a woman for her hand in marriage. But like going back to the thing you're saying about the meetings, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really, really similar. Or like a lot of the dialogue you have, if you're interested in a girl,
Mm-hmm.
is between like her parents. Like I guess if you're a guy, her dad for the most part. Like you're talking to her dad, like, hey, what is she like? What is this? And then you're allowed to have one meeting, and like
That's like the rules as per.
Yeah, Sharia. Culturally, we do things a bit differently.
Different.
We're a bit more relaxed, you know.
Yeah.
But it's still the same idea where like you should be talking to her dad and stuff, and
Yeah.
and like you have one meeting with her and you talk to her and like you talk about the things that matter, you know, and then you just get married.
I think typically, like it's the same way. Like before shadi, you meet, and then with your like the families meet, the families talk, and they give time alone for the two people, for the two people to talk, and then I think after that point, like you go back home. You don't have to decide there.
Yeah.
You go back home, and then like you just let them know over the phone, like yes, this is gonna work.
That's what I've seen in movies, at least. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah. Because why would they misrepresent it?
Yeah, my parents had an arranged marriage. Like I'm pretty sure that's how it worked.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess I'll just like quickly. Me and Sham talked for a while about a lot of this stuff, so like, this might be a repeat for him, but like I'll quickly talk about like a man's role in marriage in Islam, a woman's role in marriage, and sort of this how they can bleed over.
Yeah.
So no matter what, a man has to provide and pay and for the house and for his wife and for his children. No matter what, that's like his base requirement. And then a woman, like no matter what, she has to tend towards her children and take care of the household, clean it, and things like that. So that's what they have to do no matter what. Okay? So can a woman work? We talked about this. Yeah, a woman can work, but it's more difficult because she has to fulfill those requirements on top of working, right? Where a man, his requirement is already working. Okay? So for a woman to work, she can work, but she can't let go of her requirements.
Yeah.
So say she does work, right? What can she do with the money? Whatever she wants. So if she's at this point where she's fulfilling her base requirements and she can work, she can do whatever she wants with the money. A man's money belongs to his family. And he has to give, he has to take care of his wife. He has to give some of the money to her, things like that.
Yeah.
But the woman, she can do whatever she wants with her own money. So there's that's a little bit of a discrepancy that's there. And then, as far as the man, men are encouraged, they should, help their wives. They shouldn't just you know, if she's having a hard time with children and things like that, you should help her, and you're encouraged to do that. But is that his requirement? You know, like cleaning the house or something like that? No. But, you know, her, it's a pretty sweet gig, both ways.
Yeah.
Right? I think it works pretty well.
Yeah. I think having clearly defined rules is like something that's generally better too.
Yeah.
Because then,
like, no matter what happens, I'm gonna pay for everything. Okay.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, you're gonna take care of these things that I'm providing you with.
And I think the lack of such roles in like liberal culture is what that causes these high divorce rates to begin with.
I also think in terms of like political climate, that for the last year or two, there's been like a massive conservative counterculture.
Yeah. For sure.
To where like people were just getting progressively more and more liberal. Even me, you know, I feel like everybody, like, take it back 3, 4, like maybe, I think probably when we were in middle school, I feel like we were all far more liberal than we are now.
And I'd say last year I was far more liberal than I am now.
And we were okay with it and we accepted it. But I think as like this progressivism gets more and more aggressive, more of us are kind of spinning around to the other end, where we just like, we don't want to take part of that movement anymore.
I think that's
expected. And now we're going around. So it's kind of like, are you guys familiar with the Iranian Revolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they,
yeah.
where they have like, you know, this government that's getting more and more liberal, and then out of nowhere, super conservative Islamic regime comes in.
Yeah.
So I think it's the exact same situation.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, just on a pretty global scale.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
Because same in India, bro. Because like Congress party was ruling for so long, and then BJP came in power, and then the next year, Congress party couldn't. So in Indian government, there's a seat leader of the opposition. Okay, in order to get leader of the opposition, you need 10% of the seats in Lok Sabha. Okay, but Rahul Gandhi couldn't even get that in the last election, and I think the next election, it'll be. I mean, okay, I'm not sure about that because I've actually seen some Congress pushes in India now, right? Because it's typical to humans are suffering always, right? So it's typical to oppose whoever's in power, right? Because
Oh yeah.
I think it's typical to oppose whoever's in power and then blame them on your problems, blame the problems on them.
Even that, but I don't think India and like if we're using America, I don't think India and America are the same.
Comparable,
because
one's
India
economy is
always
on the fall.
Not even that, but I
it's
think
just like spamming different articles. Okay,
I
I'm
think
gonna try to get it here.
Sure.
Look, so in 2021, 60% identified as socially conservative, which is like 2021. That was the exact era that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then now it's 74%. So there's no change among Democrats. So, I mean, that's pretty much exactly what. Yeah, social conservative highest in about a decade. So I guess that's a true observation.
Yeah. But I was gonna say India was never as liberal as the West.
Yeah,
So
obviously. But they were getting more liberal
They were
with
getting more
Congress
liberal.
party,
Okay.
even like Bollywood, the culture they're pushing.
And I think like the aggressiveness is what made it like kind of snap back or like the pushback there.
Yeah, especially with like the targeting of children.
Yeah.
You know, like when the stuff started leaking on children, when people started seeing the things being taught in schools, and like, you know, like those sections that target the kids sections and stuff. I think when people started seeing that, it was like a shock.
Like even for a specific example, like I saw last year something like that of like some guy like twerking on stage in front of like second graders.
Yeah.
And
It's just ridiculous.
yeah.
It's just one case though. I
mean,
that's
like,
what
But I guess that's the most extreme case. But it's been like the stuff that they've been teaching in school has been getting more and more lax.
I would, yeah.
I mean, you can just like, in any context, sexualizing children isn't wrong. I mean, like, we never went and talked to kids about boys liking girls when they were in elementary school, right?
Yeah. Like
Or we never taught them, like, we just didn't talk about their sexuality because it was inappropriate.
Yeah, even then.
Do you
I feel
notice
like-
anything? I mean, you're a public school, so it's different.
Oh yeah.
We don't. I mean, a little bit. Okay, I'll talk about the private school perspective after.
But at least in my Christian school,
Yeah.
like the Christian middle school I went to,
That's
a
different
lot
too.
of, I know, but a lot of people have said that like their parents gave them like the talk or whatever. Like it just never happened to me.
Like what talk?
Like the sex talk.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that happens.
I'm
You know,
wondering.
like
if-
especially at such a young age, like when you push on to kids, like that. Hey, it's okay for you to like a girl. It's okay for you to like a boy. I mean, like we never talked about little kids liking each other, or we never had those conversations with them so early
Yeah.
on about sexuality. It's just premature. Like even whatever the hell you're talking about isn't that important. It's just the fact that you're talking to them about this so early on is really ridiculous.
One of the first discussions of this I remember was me and my dad were sitting in the living room and we saw a condom ad on the TV,
Oh, really?
and he was like, "Don't do that." I think that's all he said, or he just said it'll just cause more problems, or he said it was just that basic idea was don't do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, birth control is not haram, but I mean you're already married, so
Yeah.
it's just like deciding when you want to have a kid.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with not
Yeah.
wanting like a teen pregnancy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like there's probably not much in the Quran about.
But
Yeah,
Christians
birth
are against
control.
that birth control.
I
Are
think
they?
even are they? I don't.
I don't know.
They never talked to me about birth control in middle school.
Can you abort a baby in Islam?
No,
Once you're okay.
but why would you? Why would you need to?
Well,
Right.
If you're
Is it-
having a baby, then you're
Oh,
married
right,
already.
right.
So it's like, why do I want to abort this baby with my husband?
Yeah.
You know, it's weird.
It's
I mean,
like-
like, what is the abortion rate for married couples anyway? It's probably like super
Super
low.
low.
Oh, okay. So the idea is if you're having sex, then you're expecting a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. That's what I was.
It would just be wrong.
Yeah. Like I was talking about this to my
Like,
the
why would
person-
you get married anyway if you're gonna abort a baby? It's like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't. I don't
I
know.
was talking about this with someone as well, and she was saying that, like, what are your stances on like we were talking about abortion for some reason,
Yeah.
and I just said like I just generally don't care about abortion, but I know that I'm not going to abort my child because I'm never going to be put in a position where it's like I'm having an unwanted child.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Medically proven that the life of the mother is in danger. Yeah.
yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, it just, yeah. I just don't. I mean, there shouldn't be a need for abortion, and like, in the society that in an Islamic society, there's no why would just not even a problem,
Same.
right? I mean, like, say I'm prosecuting you and I'm a Muslim, right? And you say, hey, I'm gonna send you to jail because you had an abortion. But like, also, what are the chances that I'm also gonna charge you with sex before marriage
Yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah.
That's probably, they're probably on equal levels.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, maybe I can find numbers like what
Yeah. I mean, it's not like sex before marriage is allowed in the Bible either.
Yeah.
So.
But this is like a thing where
Yeah.
it's like liberalism is even stepping away from Christianity.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's people having these urges, as he was saying,
Yeah.
and then in most religions, you're rewarded for not acting on the bad urges, but they're making the laws to where like it's socially acceptable
Yeah.
to now act on these urges,
That makes sense.
or not the laws, but like the culture at least.
yeah.
Culture in general is becoming more to where we're
Like,
Like
I
giving
mean,
into our
if I just
desires.
run 31 plus 46 plus 9 is the amount. 31
People
plus-
not married. Yeah.
So 86% of people who have abortions are unmarried.
yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
So okay, so what if I get rid of sex before marriage? Now look at, I've reduced marriage by a factor of like 9 times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've cut it, to 1/10 of what it was before.
Yep.
As long if I just make sex before marriage wrong or sex outside of marriage wrong. So like, abortion shouldn't even be something we're worried
So what
about.
was the statistic you used?
It's not allowed in any
This-
religion. Or,
So you have 14% of people who are married.
that have an abortion?
Yeah. So like the threshold for like a lot of people talk about how like in Muslim countries that like gay people are persecuted and oppressed and killed all the time. So the Islamic evidence threshold for death punishment for gay sex is 4 witnesses of the actual act of penetration. So 4 people need to see you.
That's
having-
impossible.
having
They're not getting
sex.
persecuted.
This search is crazy, bro.
What?
4 people.
Bro, was it? How many witnesses to?
4 people
What?
need to see you have gay sex in order for you to get the death
Oh,
penalty.
how many witnesses to convict someone of gay sex Islam?
Dude, if 4 people
He's
watch,
going on the search.
dude,
bro.
if 4 people watch you and your wife have sex, you're probably getting the death penalty anyway.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with even being gay at that point.
Okay. So then, so if you don't have the witnesses, what punishment are you getting?
But say what you said about
No.
self-confession.
Yeah. So we're just talking. So it needs 4 people. So you can also confess. You can basically turn yourself in, and in order to do that, you basically have to be a witness to yourself 4 times. So you say it 4 times. You say I had gay sex 4 times. Yeah. So there's this one guy. There's this one hadith I know, where this guy was talking to the prophet, and he was like, "Yo, I cheated on my wife."
Yeah.
And the prophet was like, he said like, I don't know if this is actually what he said.
Yeah.
He said like, did the bucket go in the well or some shit? Did the rope go in the well? It's like, did you like actually penetrate? And the guy was like, yeah. And then the prophet like he turned his head, and then the guy said it again, and he turned his head again, and so I guess he did it like multiple times.
Yeah.
And then he had him stoned
Oh.
because the guy just confessed to himself over and over.
Yeah.
So if you don't confess, you just keep it to yourself. Then you do the Asama Toba, major sin, repentance, and you will be fine.
Okay.
Or you can get yourself killed.
What happens if you just confess once?
Then it's not enough.
Nothing will happen to you.
No,
Okay.
you have to say it 4 times.
Okay.
And then
It's a stringent law. It's like it's not like, oh, I think you act feminine, or like you're wearing nail polish, so I'm gonna like no.
Yeah.
4 people need to watch you have sex.
Yeah.
Does someone that doesn't sin, or I guess no one like doesn't sin their entire life, but let's say someone sins very less,
Yeah.
comparatively to someone that sins a lot more and they repent.
Oh,
Like what's the levels? Like how does that work?
Yeah.
Levels of heaven.
So actually, it might be that sinning and then repenting is even better.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, okay. There's like because Allah. First of all, it's inherent that we're all going to sin, no matter what life you live.
I think even like in Christianity, it's the same.
Yeah. So the mercy of Allah is that
Except for Muhammad.
sometimes, yeah. But the reason he doesn't is because he's an example of how we live.
Right? Yeah.
But I believe there's a narration where he actually missed.
So
He'll teach us lessons through mistakes that he makes, sort of. I can give one example to where I think he missed like the morning prayer because he overslept,
Yeah.
but then
That's not a sin though. Yeah.
he just made it up quickly.
Oh, the search. It's kind of.
But he just made it up quickly. And so that teaches us, what do we do when we miss, or can we just make it up as quickly as possible?
Yeah. So the belief is that prophets are sent by God in all Abrahamic faiths.
Okay. Oh yeah, so he missed it one time. So like, everything he does is to teach us something. There's another example. This one's really interesting. So he was like, a big thing in our religion is hygiene and like presenting yourself good, and for men like smelling good for some reason. So
I get it.
so one of his wives, so he had multiple wives at this point in time, because he didn't always, but like at certain points in time he did. So this time he had multiple wives, and one of them gave honey to him, right, as a gift. So he gave honey, and the other wife got jealous, right, or the others got jealous. So they conspired a plot where they're like, okay, like tell him that his breath smells bad from this honey, so it's like a bad gift. So she won't get the gift again. So they all told him that, and he was like, okay, I'm never gonna eat honey ever again. That's literally what he said.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if the prophet doesn't eat honey, then we're not gonna eat honey. So a verse comes down when he says that, and the verse said, and this is for all of us, that like, don't make things that aren't haram upon yourself. So like, if something isn't explicitly forbidden, then don't forbid yourself from things
Yeah.
for no reason.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like not like a dietary restriction or something like that. But you know, it's just like, I mean, obviously there's logical reasons for, you know, restricting yourself from something, but in general. So he was like, okay, I shouldn't like restrict myself from this when Allah didn't forbid me from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is, okay, this is kind of unrelated. I was gonna ask before
The
this.
messengers, right?
Yeah, so they're like sent by, so the belief in all Abrahamic faith is that a prophet is sent by God, right? So like they're then like what of their parents? Like do they hold any significance?
Yeah, I mean, Mary wasn't a prophet, but she's super revered in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes their parents aren't good people.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they are. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be anything special about their parents, but
So why are their parents revered?
I mean, like, it just depends. Like, sometimes their parents are good people, sometimes they aren't,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, if their parents
So
are,
it's like you're-
Mary was, or we call her Maryam, like, she was, you know, a very good woman, so we revere
Just
her.
like a historical figure that you revere.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like,
But you would revere any historical figure in the text that was good person.
yeah, there's nothing
There's a lot of
specifically
people up here in
special about,
Text, right?
there's nothing specifically special about a prophet's parents.
Okay.
Other than that, the fact that they become historical figures because they're the prophet's
Yeah,
parents.
yeah, that makes
That
sense.
makes them important.
Yeah.
But the idea is that throughout human history, anytime people would be led astray,
Mm-hmm.
there would be a prophet that would come and try to bring people back to morality.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, the moral compass of society is losing track. You know, let me make sure that people are following the way that they should be. Just because you don't want everybody going to hell, right?
It's very similar. Like
Vishnu.
Krishna, right? Krishna
Yeah,
is
it's an
an
incarnation of
is
Vishnu.
an avatar of Vishnu, who's an aspect of the ultimate God. Okay, it doesn't really matter that he's an aspect of like avatar of Vishnu. It's just there because Vishnu. Okay, so Vishnu.
Well, I mean, the reason why I said Vishnu instead of Krishna is 'cause it's not like Krishna's not the one appearing every time.
Yeah, sure.
It's
So
Vishnu
I mean,
that's-
just
yeah.
okay.
Wait, same thing.
I can clarify. So Vishnu is an like aspect of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like or God is Bhagwan, whatever you want to call him, Parabrahma.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, he has three aspects: the creation aspect of him, the destruction aspect of him, like preservation aspect of him. So this preservation aspect is what we call Vishnu.
Right.
Krishna is an avatar of that aspect,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on Earth. He's put on Earth for a specific purpose. They didn't put an avatar of Shiva at this time,
Yeah.
right? The time he was there was before the Kali Yuga, before the era of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So he is there on Earth for a specific reason, right? Preservation. Okay? At
Yeah.
that time, right, preservation was especially important in that stage. But anyways, the reason I mentioned that is it's like similar reason, right? They're like okay, we can talk about their parents. There are stories about their parents. You ever heard the story about Krishna and the butter that he stole?
I heard it as a child, like very young. I don't
Okay.
really remember, but I remember there was a story about him and butter.
Yeah, Krishna stole butter that his mom forbade him to take. He ate it, and then
It's like the forbidden fruit, pretty much.
okay.
Not
His
really.
mom asked him to open his mouth, right? This is like not like that.
I'll say Johnny.
It's not that deep. Yeah. she asked him to open his mouth, and inside his mouth she saw the whole universe, right? It's just like this is like Krishna's like what Krishna beholds, right? Like this is who Krishna is. Krishna is
Yeah.
like a, you know, he's the avatar of Vishnu, who is who is an aspect of God, and he's here on Earth at this time for a specific reason, right? That's why that's like, I guess you could consider it even like a reason people revere Krishna. Even at a baby, people like knew at a time, like at that time, like, because that's how you know he's not false, like a false avatar. Like someone could claim to be an avatar of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could claim to be an avatar of Krishna. But that story just shows that Krishna was put on Earth, right? As an avatar of God for a reason.
Yeah. Like I said, everything is done.
That makes sense. And even if you're looking at another Abrahamic religion, like Christianity, for example,
Yeah. Or
like Mary is, again, same as Islam, like pretty revered, and they're saying that her and Jesus are the only like sinless beings.
I mean, they even, I mean, Catholics will even go as far as worshiping her.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that. So.
What about like Muhammad's like
Parents.
no, like when he was young?
Yeah, I mean,
Stories about it.
yeah. There's, I mean, his life is very, 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 very documented.
Yeah.
So I was telling, so there's basically two things that we follow in Islam. So we have the Quran, which you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's something called Hadith. And Hadith are just documentations and sayings of the Prophet, you know, that have been documented. Just, you know what I mean? So, so people, at one point, I think in about 1200s, this guy named Bukhari, he went and he basically made it his goal to compile as many authentic hadith as possible. So he would go down like a chain of narrators and get all the different sayings, and then he would verify them. So he would check like, okay, how reputable are these sources? Is this person who is narrating this, do they have good memory? You know, all these different factors, and then from that you determine like is the hadith kind of weak, or is it a true, strong, authentic? This definitely is a saying. So there's a lot of prolific narrators of hadith. The guy who has the most is this guy named Abu Huraira, and I was telling you he has like over 3,000,
Yeah.
or maybe over 5,000. How many?
We got Jamie.
And like a big difference between Islam and Hinduism is that like Islam is a lot more recent history.
100%.
That's true. Like we go back before the Ice Age too.
Our stuff is passed down though.
I mean, like, this is,
orally
like-
too.
This is hundreds of years after Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's,
That's
Our
crazy.
tradition was like also to pass down things orally. At some point, it became written down, but it was always orally passed down.
Right.
I
It's
can't-
like some-
I can't get the exact number.
Like stuff like the Ramayana was
But
set
this-
up and done.
The reason this dude had so many is because he had photographic memory.
Oh,
So he was able to just get it all done. And actually, the reason he had photographic memory, he wasn't born with it, but he was talking to the Prophet, and he was stressed because he was like, I don't want to forget what you're saying, and I'm worried, like, sometimes you say things and I just don't remember what they are clearly. And so after that, from that point on, I guess, he was given photographic memory.
I see.
So, yeah. And then the second most prolific narrator was actually his wife, the one that he married when she was so young. So,
Aisha?
Aisha, yeah. So these hadith are what we get, like, a lot of the religion comes from these. Foremost, the Quran, and then the guy, Bukhari, his hadith are like the second, so like, I guess, in terms of like Islamic literature, what do we follow the most? The Quran, and then Bukhari's book, because he has the most authentic hadith, and then his student's name was Muslim, and this dude has like, you know, he's basically picking up leftovers. He's trying to grab whatever left hadith are left, and so inherently they're a little bit less authentic, but they're good.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. I was about to say something, but I totally forgot. His life, right? So his childhood. So a lot of people, this is also stemming from the Dostoevsky argument, think that God hates them, or even because God has brought hardship into this world, that there's something wrong. So if you look at like the most beloved, Muhammad is the most beloved person by God, right? He was orphaned. I think his dad died before he was born. His mother died when he was 6, and then he just had like a horrible life. Honestly, overall, it's just like a really, really bad life. But he was an orphan, like, I think by the time he was like. 6.
So from the time.
Oh yeah, by the time he was 6, he was an orphan. He was raised, but I think this. And then he has like some family members that really hated him. But Islam, he wasn't always a prophet. So
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when he was a child, he was not. He became a prophet.
But God deemed him a prophet at a certain age.
So at a certain age, he began receiving revelation,
Oh.
right? But he was always a prophet, right? But he wasn't Islam didn't come yet.
Yeah.
The Quran wasn't there yet.
Yeah. It's like
He
God
didn't-
chose him as the person to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were monotheists at the time.
Yeah.
Some people in his family were monotheists. A lot of it's kind of like sometimes the way we feel, where like we see a lot of things wrong with society and we want to turn somewhere else.
Yeah.
So there were people like that back then.
Yeah.
So a lot of them like because people were idol worshippers. Like, no offense, but like I guess that's what people saw as being impure or wrong, and they're like, no, we want to turn it into something else. But their version of idol worshipping wasn't even as organized as Hinduism, where it was just
okay, for idol worshipping, this is what I'd clarify. So when you say idol worshipper, you mean like we are praying to like a statue of God, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just have like, I guess it's just like a physical, like you have these physical things.
Okay. The reason we use that.
I think they were, those polytheists, like they believed that those physical statues actually held some sort of power.
Yeah.
I know you guys just see them as symbolism.
Yeah, we don't believe they have power. It's a way to connect to God. If you like see that in front of you, right, and like you have that in front of you, that's a way for you to talk to God. If you have nothing, it's harder for you to communicate to God. But when you're at the temple and you're praying like to something, like to a physical object, even if it's not real, even if it holds no matter, that helps you connect to God, right?
Yeah.
Because like if I'm sitting here praying, like I can pray to Bhagwan all I want, but when I pray in front of like when I pray in front of a statue of Krishna, that connection is deeper.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, I think
I didn't know that. Actually.
I think I would disagree. Like,
You don't need that.
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like we guess, you know, we have like, we still have masjids and stuff, but like we don't have
It's the same idea as a masjid. Praying at home and praying at masjid.
It's a different.
The
yeah,
feeling is different.
It's different.
Yeah.
But it's not about like we don't have physical manifestations of God whatsoever, because our belief is that this is such like a super competent, you know, like being that is. I mean, we can't even say it's a being. This is just so vast and so like hyper existent.
It would be disrespectful.
Not disrespectful, but it's just not physically. You can't.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you can draw this down to a three-dimensional space.
So to emphasize the like power of God.
Emphasize, yeah, just like the sheer insanity. But then also, like Muhammad, like we don't have pictures of him at all, and that's mainly just to prevent people like, you know, degrading into like worshiping these things.
Yeah.
And you know, like people have pictures of Jesus everywhere,
Yeah.
and they're worshiping Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, but like the first three Gospels, was it Matthew,
Like Luke and John.
Matthew, Luke, and John? I think those
Was
are
it John or Mark
Mark, Matthew, Mark,
and Luke?
and Luke, or Matthew, Mark, and John. Okay, basically, yeah, Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Yeah.
Okay, so these first three Gospels, in their documentations, they actually, there's never any mention of Jesus claiming to be God.
Oh, so then it was the fourth one where.
Yeah, so this stuff started coming from outside sources. And even the Bible, like the Bible is so much more similar to the Quran than people think it is, but nobody reads the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So far, I
I
can
have
say
this
this
because I Google this all the time.
for our God, like one God, Bhagwan Parabrahma. We don't have a statue of him.
Yeah.
There's no images of him either.
Yeah.
It's a God you can't
We
see.
have like the avatars.
The avatars. It's the same way how people have pictures of Jesus.
Like
Right?
Yeah.
But Jesus is different, and Jesus is super flawed. Like
Well-
the whole Christian narrative
Yeah.
of worshiping Jesus is really bad, because you
How
guys
so?
think that those are avatars, and
Of
that's
God.
you think that's an avatar. You don't think that's God.
No, it's not. He's not.
They think that Jesus is God.
Meaning,
They think that Jesus created, like they think Jesus is God.
like he created the universe.
Yeah, like
The-
he's
the
part of the
Holy
same.
Trinity thing that
Yeah,
we
he's
talked
part of
about.
the same entity. So
Yeah.
you have the Holy Trinity, right?
Yeah.
Like
Father,
him,
Son, Holy Spirit.
like him, Jesus, and God is the same thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe Jesus didn't physically create the universe, but the Father did. But he is the Father as well.
That's Christians belief.
Like,
Okay.
so
okay.
they're
Well,
like, it's not even like you guys aren't even like that.
I mean, for like, Krishna is an aspect of Vishnu, or is it an avatar?
So
of
who
Vishnu?
made the universe? Brahma?
What?
Brahma made the universe. Who was it?
Parabrahma, the ultimate God.
Yeah.
But
Brahma
the
is like
aspect of the ultimate God that created the universe was Brahma. You can think of it's not like I don't know. There's just no other way of describing it. There's 3 aspects to God. You know, people will often draw the metaphor between a neutron, a proton, and an electron, right? The 3 aspects to God are destruction, creation, and preservation. And we just name these aspects.
Yeah.
We assign names to these aspects to understand it better.
Like Brahma is the creator. So when you say that it was a Brahma that created the universe, it's like it's an aspect of the ultimate being.
Yeah.
It's the creator aspect. And then something like Krishna or Rama.
Brahma is just God is just everything.
Yeah.
Okay, He's everything. He is the preservation. He is the destruction. Anything that is God. That's the best way to say it.
And I guess there's
Yeah,
3
I think
aspects to everything that exists, which is creation, preservation, and destruction.
You could say
Is
so.
that how
You could say
it's-
so. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could draw that metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's what Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu.
So this is actually another thing. Before most devotees were Vishnu devotees, but now, like after Kali Yuga, there's more Shiva devotees than ever.
Yeah,
Shiva's
yeah.
the destroyer.
What? Yeah, it's because of the era we're in, right? There's a reason for that. The
Yeah.
reason we're worshiping Shiva is because of the era we're in. He is the one bringing upon this destruction.
So there's a few like.
I guess to quickly explain so there's this thing called the Yuga cycle.
We already explained it.
Did
So
we
this
explain
I
is-
explained it.
You said that we're in the last so this is a cycle, like the last cycle where everything ends.
Yeah, and you want to like explain the other stages?
I mean, I don't really know much compared to you.
Okay.
So
I mean, after this Yuga,
like there's a
But
golden
this is
age.
also
Yes.
John. Like you see, so this is the claim that Jesus makes that he's God, but this is from John. So this is after the first 3 Gospels.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's some pollution that came somewhere, because
So was John the last, like by a lot?
I think he might be the 4th, but it's after the first 3 originals. Like in those first 3, like there's no claims of Jesus like claiming to be God. So the reason why this supports like the Muslim belief is because we believe that like so the Jewish text is the Torah.
Yeah.
So we believe that we believe in Moses, we believe in Jesus. So we believe that the Bible and that revelation was sent to Jesus. Okay, but it's been corrupted and changed, and it's not what it once was. That's why there's so many similarities, but Islam also comes to fix what was broken, and the same with the Torah. So this is like, I feel like this is like another like sign that there's corruption because of that. And so like Muslims like to make the claim that like, well, Jesus never even claims he was God.
Okay, but I guess this is where I really want to ask. Okay, for us, you can worship Krishna, right?
Mhm.
You're saying it's for Muslims look down on people who worship Jesus, right?
Dude, yeah. I mean, like, I shouldn't even like a thing we do in jiu-jitsu, like we bow down to other people.
Mhm.
We shouldn't even do that.
Yeah,
Really?
and you
They
should.
only bow down to God.
So you shouldn't worship Muhammad, right?
No.
I mean, obviously.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just asking that
Yeah.
for clarification. Like, okay, we worship Krishna as
But you think Krishna's a part of God?
correct.
So that's
He's
why.
like a
Je-
representation of a part of God.
He's a representation of God. It's like God. It's as if
You're worshiping Brahma indirectly. Yes
it's,
or no?
It's
I mean, part of Brahma.
part of Brahma.
Yeah. So you're worshiping because Brahma's
Part-
the creation, right?
Part of Brahma. Yeah, sure.
So you're
Or
yeah,
Bhagwan. You can just call him Bhagwan.
Bhagwan, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're worshiping a part of 1/3 the creation part or whatever. Or Krishna is preservation.
Yeah,
Preservation.
he is an aspect of. We call the preservation aspect of him Vishnu,
Vishnu.
and Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu in that case.
Yeah. So everything is coming back, right?
Right. So I'm saying, how does that differ from? Oh, you're saying okay. So Jesus wasn't always a prophet.
He's saying that Muhammad isn't directly Allah. Like they're not. Muhammad, like Allah told Muhammad, like he gave him.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
okay.
so
It's
he
not
was-
like Allah came onto this
Yeah,
earth.
yeah.
No.
It's like Allah told a message to
So
to
Allah-
a person on earth.
No, Allah gave a message to an angel. The angel's name is Gabriel or Jibrail.
Uh-huh.
And then Jibrail would come down with the message and give it to Muhammad.
Okay, so that's why you guys look down
Muhammad
upon
is just a
Christians
human.
worshiping Jesus.
Muhammad is equally as human
As
as us.
Okay,
But
yeah.
Krishna isn't.
Krishna
Like-
isn't a human.
Anatomically.
He was a person, but he wasn't a human.
Like Muhammad didn't have.
Meaning like he was on earth.
Muhammad
Yeah.
didn't have superpowers that came from himself.
Yeah.
Like everything was through Allah.
Yeah.
If any miracle happened, it wasn't because Muhammad was, a superhuman.
Okay, that makes sense. I see why we differ from that then.
Yeah, I mean, all of the, we believe that all of them are like that. So this angel Jibreel is the one that's like carrying out all these messages.
Yeah. I guess like why is that then? Like
So
why?
like, that's when I say like, oh, then Muhammad received revelation.
Yeah.
So Jibreel, like with the honey thing, after that happened, Jibreel came and he
Mhm.
said this.
So it make no sense to worship Muhammad because
No.
he's a human.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess
Or a
my question is in Abrahamic faiths then, why doesn't God come onto earth if he loves humans so much?
Because he's like,
We can't comprehend it. I guess.
yeah, I mean, dude, like, how are you gonna like?
he,
Listen, bro.
He can't put himself
Listen,
in
bro.
a human
If you're like making a video game, bro. Say I'm making The Sims, right?
Sure.
You're so like spatially beyond The Sims. This is your creation. They could never understand you. They're just a bunch of pieces of code.
Yeah, so that's why
You're
we,
so beyond them. How are you gonna get in there? I mean, okay, maybe you can make a Sims character, okay, and you can call it Shyam,
Yeah.
and that's the Hindu belief.
we are giving the perfect we are giving the belief that like the perfect version for a human to understand God. We're not saying he comes on, you're gonna understand God completely, like this is God. Krishna is not God, right? He's not Bhagwan.
Okay.
He's coming on. Krishna is like God is manifesting himself in a certain way so that humans will be able to like discover whatever from him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, if God is so powerful, why can't he do that?
I mean, it's not even that. You're automatically assuming that that's the most optimal way to do it.
So
But
for
when
you
it-
guys it's through a book. It's
Not through a book, but also through
the prophet.
through the way he acted, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm of the belief that the most optimal way
Mm-hmm.
to guide humans is not by showing them God,
Mm-hmm.
but by showing them a human
Mm-hmm.
that has been, that is following the orders of God. Because you can
Oh.
sympathize with that and you can
Okay.
actually become that. Are you ever going to be able to become Shiva?
It's not Shiva. It's, I mean, like
Like,
Shiva would
I
never
can
come
come-
down.
I
Shiva
can-
would never come down on it. Like
know.
an aspect.
I
of
mean,
it.
whatever one.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's not for me.
What is it? Ganesh.
What?
Like those like actual like the idea is that we're all slaves of Allah and we want to be the best slave possible. So if Allah comes and how is that gonna help me become the best worshipper of Allah?
Okay, I can answer. For me, it's like if you see like Krishna come down on this earth, that for you is proof, like definite proof that God exists, right? If
Yeah,
Krishna
yeah,
comes,
yeah.
that for me is better. I mean I respect everything. Alright, I'll tell this from the start. Like Sanatanis believe that every path to God is correct. So for you guys, I do believe that was the best way. For like whoever becomes Muslim, that's God's will, right?
Mhm.
So I believe that for whoever is Muslim, that this was the optimal way for them,
Yeah.
right? But for me, the optimum way is to know that He came on earth.
I mean,
It's definite. Then He exists.
but like if you lived at the time of Muhammad,
Yeah.
it was very easy to be Muslim back then, and for us, like it's said that like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like
Yeah.
as
that's why I'm saying.
he says that like I fear for the people who are gonna have to live without my existence because it's gonna be harder for them to be Muslim.
Yeah.
Because you guys, all of you guys see me and you see the miracles that I entail,
Yeah.
and you basically can't deny it.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle exists.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of things that happened, that made it not so. I mean, like the battles and stuff.
Yeah.
Like there were certain battles. Like there was a lot. I mean, like I was telling you, the Muslim community was not very large, and they were engaged in a lot of wars. and they were vastly outnumbered in a lot of them, and they were still able to pull through.
Yeah.
And so, and just because of like the sheer character of him.
Yeah.
So I mean that principle still existed to where like, if you lived during that time, you'd be like, nah, this is like, there's no way I can't do that. Like this is definite proof.
There's different ways at different, especially different times. You know, we're talking about such different time periods, different locations.
And I feel like what he's saying with miracles being definite proof versus like God himself coming down and being indefinite proof.
Yeah.
He's saying that like Muhammad is doing he's doing miracles as well, but he's doing them through Allah.
Yeah,
Allah is giving him the power to do it. So that's definite proof in it.
And it's like nothing excessive either.
Yeah.
You know, like none of this stuff is like insanely like.
I guess one way to look
not
at
like,
it.
like those people that I don't know.
I guess one way to look at it is like, at this time in history, like 600 AD or whatever, a lot of people believed in God already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then maybe
definitely not.
Definitely not.
No.
Christians, Jewish people.
Oh, I mean, in the Middle East, but like in his environment, it was like mostly polytheists.
Okay.
But there were Jews and Christians like that were alive, yeah. But like they didn't get along. Like there was a lot of complaints like from the Muslim community about like Jews that were like they would have a lot of like contractual agreements that Jewish people would break, and so there was animosity. But between Muslim relation and Christian relations were actually pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I guess just God has His way.
I mean, it was there,
everything.
But like it was very polytheistic.
Yeah.
It was so the pre-era was considered like the pre-Islamic age of ignorance. But like I think a lot of people also like.
But you guys believe that at a time the Bible was correct, right? And then it got corrupted.
Well, we believe that like the message, like Isa, we call him, he was a real person, and he got real messages from Allah.
Yeah. And Yesu, we call him in India Jesus. Yesu.
Oh yeah, that's probably closer to Isa. Yeah, and he lost that. That was corrupted over time. It wasn't documented well enough. Something. So there was a promise with the Quran, like these two books have failed in the past. This is the final message, and I promise that this one will not be corrupted.
Okay.
And so I mean, like you can. So.
I wonder what if like another faith comes along, bro, and it becomes huge. It's just like a derivation of something like Islam.
It can't be. So I don't.
You guys don't
in
believe
his belief, yeah. It's just whatever's written in the Quran and the other texts.
This is the final thing.
Yeah.
So like Islam, and because we don't need another messenger anymore. Why?
Yeah.
The Quran
Yeah.
has been in perfectly preserved state.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any problems with that, and there's 2 billion Muslims.
Yeah.
So what's the need for another messenger?
Yeah.
We have everything that we need.
So does like Christianity or Christians or Jewish people, do they believe in a final prophet?
Yeah,
they think that it's
theirs.
No. It's like I don't know about the like. What do you mean the final prophet?
So like at when Christians, do they believe there's like after the Bible was written? Do they believe after that point there's more prophets to come?
I think that's a thing. I think in Judaism it is.
But
I don't think Christianity explicitly states that there's no more prophets.
Yeah, he's right. Because in Judaism, they think like the Son of God is yet to come. They think Jesus was just like one of another prophet.
Yeah, I mean, I can read.
Oh, but they believe that there's a Son of God.
Yeah, but he hasn't come on earth yet.
Jewish people, really?
Jewish people, yeah. And Christians believe that Jesus is going to come back and like.
But we also believe that.
Oh, really?
Jesus, yeah, but not that like he's going to get resurrected. But like he's just gonna come because of the Antichrist and everything.
Explain.
I don't know. Okay, so it's called Dajjal for us. So like there's signs. So the Day of Judgment, right? This is like this scary day, bro. Like the horns blow, and
it's like Ragnarok.
Yeah,
you can draw that comparison.
Bad news, bro.
Yeah.
And so this is like one of the final signs.
What is the Day of Judgment again? It's like the end of all times.
Yeah, pretty much. So this is like
end of the world.
Everybody gets pulled out of their graves, like all the souls, and you get presented in front of God, and you basically like explain every single sin, and that's when you get told. That's when you find out if you're going to Jannah or Jahannam.
For Christians, it's like Jesus reveals the ultimate truth, like the thing with the dead coming back to life. Like that's all, and like you present your sins to Christ, and then like you hear the ultimate truth. So there's something that we don't know yet. I think that's
Okay,
Like,
okay,
that's
hold
at least how
up,
it's
hold up.
presented.
So if you're, I thought when you die, that's when like.
No, I think people like their soul is like waiting for the day of judgment.
Yeah.
I think some
okay.
people, I think martyrs, like certain people just instantly go.
So what happens when you
So,
die?
okay, so here's the thing.
Like saints or something like
It's
that.
like you die, right?
Yeah.
And you're waiting for the day of judgment. And that can be a comfortable waiting period. That can be an uncomfortable waiting period.
Yeah.
Or for martyrs, it just goes by like nothing. And they're just like,
Yeah.
they don't even have to worry
It's
about
like
that.
it's like the sense of time.
Oh.
And then even like when you're in heaven, like there's like you crawl up this, like you go up the stairs and you go through like all these valleys and stuff. And that journey can be seamless or it can be difficult.
Yeah. Like for
Depending
example,
on your level of righteousness.
have
But
you,
you're gonna get there eventually, right?
have you heard of purgatory?
No.
It's like it's the waiting period between your death and when you enter heaven.
So that's what Christians are referring to when they say like I'm going to heaven after I die or hell after I die. They're referring to the waiting period.
No. It's the end goal. It's like the same as what he's saying.
What?
Like it's the end. Like there's a purgatory between your death
Okay.
and when you go.
So when you die,
And as he's saying, like
Yeah.
depending on the severity of your sins, your repentance, it can either be easy or it can be like extremely hard and like arduous.
so you don't go to
get
heaven or hell when you die.
Not immediately.
through. Not immediately. Yeah.
You wait. Everybody.
Everybody waits until the day of judgment.
Yeah, and like that waiting period can basically be non-existent if you're very righteous, like if you're a martyr, or it can be sucky. Like the dirt can be like freaking suffocating you.
You know, or it
It
can
just
be like
depends.
walk
But
4
your
million
soul
miles
is
or something.
still. Your soul doesn't go to heaven yet, and then the day of judgment is freaky too. It's like that, like because there's no explanation. Like your truth just comes out, and like your hands, and you know, like if you're jerking off all the time, like your hands will like testify against you. You know,
Oh,
and
okay.
shit like that.
Here's what I always thought, and this is what messed me up. I was always wondering about this. You know, for us, you're reborn over and over again, right? And until you reach that like moksha,
Yeah.
like your soul is liberated. I always wondered why like Christians and like Hindus believe, or not Christians and Hindus, like Christians and Muslims believe, like after like 100 years of your life, but I mean that's even like 80 years of your life, you immediately go to heaven or hell. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so like you thought like there's people in heaven right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like,
No.
I was very-
It's like time passes differently.
time passes differently.
for people between
Then
death.
that's
and,
so similar, bro. Because
That's remember when I told you like all
Yeah.
religion is the same thing.
yeah.
There's
it's
it's
very
not.
similar.
Yeah, there's also like
If you live a good life, like for us, if you live a good life, like you live by dharma, then there's like
It happens eventually.
there's, you know, you have to experience less. Like your weight will be less. Like
Yeah.
every life that you live good, like dharmically, then you're getting closer and closer to that moksha,
right.
to the liberation.
I remember watching.
So like
Yeah.
if I do good things for the rest of my life, and then I keep doing good things, and for the rest of my
That wait
other
time is
lives-
gonna be so much shorter.
Yeah, right.
But if you're doing bad things, you're just setting yourself back.
This is like I think. What's patalok? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, bro.
This is prime Purana.
No, this is not what. This is not what he called it, man.
Well, go up. I want to read about that. Hold up. So let me see that. Yamaloka is the Hindu equivalent where sinners are tormented after. Also, the abode of it is described as located beneath the earth.
I read. You never heard of this?
I've heard of it. I don't know.
I've read stories on
Definitely
like,
don't
Yama and
believe in
stuff.
it. I'll have to click on this, see where it originates from. Definitely the Puranas. Like, the Atharva Veda describes a realm of darkness where murderers are confined after death. So the reason I think that humans may have written this is like, you know, fear aspect maybe.
Yeah, it's true. Do we end it there?
It exists for sure. Because it's in the Vedas.
Okay.
Oh, okay. But like they expanded on it a lot more.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's the man-made text, like Manusmriti, for example.
There's certain Islamic beliefs that people think like hell is temporary. Like it eventually hell would be
Yeah.
destroyed.
Makes sense.
Fatala, that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, in Islam, it's really not that impossible to go to heaven. I feel like getting what was it? Eternal salvation.
Moksha.
Moksha. I think moksha is like a lot harder than getting.
It seems harder. That's what I think. but it's the same because we believe that everything is the same. Yeah, across.
But
all-
like your bad karma is like a lot harder to get rid of.
what do you mean?
Like in Islam, like if your last words,
You're not you don't get rid of your bad karma, right? There's a certain amount of experience you're like trying to get, right? Or you're trying to achieve. So it's just balanced out by the good karma you do. There's no way you're not thinking about it. That thought doesn't exist as per our beliefs. You can't cancel or you can't get rid of bad karma. It doesn't stick with you. It's not sticking with you. It's just something that you do. But like if you do like more good things, then you're getting closer to that goal. So I guess like I guess it's easier. That's what I was thinking. I told you what I used to believe. I used to believe that you just after your life you go to heaven or hell, right? But like now I'm thinking about it. It makes so much sense to me because it's the same. Like you don't immediately get something, right? You know the way I used to justify it, bro. Like the reason I used to justify it was like God wanted people to live their best. When I thought this, I didn't know this before that there was a waiting period. But the reason I used to the way I used to
like Christian websites.
The way I justified this was like Islam and Christianity. The reason they say like after your, cause again I didn't know this. The reason they say after your life you go to heaven or hell is to like motivate people to live their best life possible. That's how I used to justify it. Because I genuinely thought that there wasn't a waiting period. I didn't know about this waiting period. So I thought like this is all after Hinduism. It was written so that like
It's the same as the Puranas.
it's getting worse. Yeah. So it's like to motivate people to live like that.
But even on the day of judgment, you can intercede for yourself and like try to explain and get forgiveness on the day of judgment.
Yeah.
Even if you think, like one thing is said that like I tell you like Allah will forgive all your sins, all this stuff. I tell you like Allah will turn your bad sins into good sins. Allah likes sinners who repent. There's a saying, Jannah, heaven is full of sinners who repent. But all of that mercy, it says that like Allah's mercy comes in 100 parts, and that's only one of it, and the 99 is saved for the day of judgment when we're gonna need it. So if we imagine all of that as being 1% of 100% mercy, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. But I don't think there's people in heaven right now.
It's a good place to end it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see what else we discuss on.
Yeah.
I guess like my biggest surprise was how like, I had a foundational belief that all religion like there's different workarounds, but they all like in terms of values and stuff, but like ethics and like the end goal I thought was like the same in every religion.
It is very
Very
close.
similar at least, yeah. But even I was surprised at how much, even textually, like Abrahamic religions all have in common.
Yeah. I think there is some like universal ethic code. I think there's something that like humans have discovered that seems to be universally true, that is consistent throughout almost every culture. You know, like Eastern Europeans or people in China are like not that religious, okay, but they're as morally sound as Muslims are sometimes, where they don't have sex before marriage and they're like all this stuff, but they don't have religion. I think there's some universal ethics that exists for certain, that that there is an objective morality.
Yeah, 100%. That's what Dharma is. Objective morality.
Right.
And I think
eternal truth.
Yeah.
There's right and there's wrong.
I think I don't know. I do think that like people are steering. And I guess if you look at most of human history, I guess people haven't been always on that way. But yeah, I guess we're a lot more similar, than we are farther apart.
Yeah.
And like our beliefs are all shared.
We all believe that murder is wrong. We don't need religion to tell us that.
Right.
Yeah, but even more specific beliefs.
Yeah.
Like we all believe that sex before marriage is wrong.
Yeah. Traditionally.
Yeah. And it's
I don't know about
that's
all.
like
There's probably like tribals who don't agree, I'd say.
I mean, but those tribals haven't had introspective thought on morality.
Yeah.
If they sat down and did, then it would be a religion.
I think it comes with civilization.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is
You
like...
know what I think the next stage in civilization is? I was talking to Rishi about this. Maybe I mentioned it to you. But...
if you start talking again.
I'm probably talking to you and Jay about it. But, like, the world becomes one. There's no countries.
Hey, you were saying that. Like, we become world citizens instead of...
That's the
I think that's
US
just
citizen.
going to happen just because we're going to be interplanetary.
That's going to happen. But I think that's the next stage for civilization. Like, we are looking on, like, tribals, like, like, oh my god, like, they were, like, they're tribals, they have their own, like, groups or whatever. I think the future will be looking at us like, oh my god, these people were Indians and Chinese. They weren't one group.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think those different groups will always exist.
What?
I think as
like you can
specific...
say like Earth and like Mars or something.
No,
like
because look at this, bro.
I think it'll
Like you and
exist.
me, or us, we see Chinese people as all being the same. But if you zoom in, they all think they're so different. Like there's the Uyghurs, there's Cantonese people.
Mentally, not physically. Yeah.
Physically, they can be very different too.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think we're all. I mean, dude, think about white people. They probably think Indians are all the same. But all these differences. Like you don't see two Indians as being the same.
Even in
there's so many differences between you guys.
Yeah.
So if you zoom out, maybe everybody on Earth is gonna look the same, but we're all still gonna have the same differences between us.
I think, like, I would take what you just said in the beginning and steer it in a different direction. I think if you, like, look at us, like I think it'll, like, these differences will cease to exist, bro. Like, I think we started out as different groups in different locations, and now the world is becoming more globalized. We're all, like, I think we're going to look more similar than more different in the future.
And also, I think, like...
Look at how much interracial marriage is happening now. Like, I thought about this the other day. Like, people are talking about all these changes happening in the world, but if you really think about the changes happening in the world, that's different from any time in history.
Yeah,
interracial marriage, bro.
Yeah.
That has never happened before in history.
Yeah, I mean, like,
we've been so separate from each other. We've been marrying within the same communities.
Yeah.
And now this is happening. Like, think about the consequences of it. If in the future, like, and interracial marriage is not going away. I'd argue that it's something that's happening, that's becoming more prevalent, not less.
Do you see anything wrong with that?
With interracial marriage?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
Actually, yeah, I think this is like a universal truth.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
We don't see problems with the same things.
Exactly.
Like we all accept racism to be wrong.
Exactly.
Here's like the final sermon of the prophet. So
That's a good place to end.
Yeah. So this is his final speech before he died
Okay.
in the 60s. So here's racism. So this is trying to sum up his, what he wants people to do at the very end.
Alright, highlight a part for us to read at the end.
Okay.
This
I'm
episode.
not reading it all.
What?
If the listener or viewer is interested in the final sermon,
Yeah. So
he
you guys can look those
give
up.
it one
Wait, here's
point,
Just highlight one part, bro, for the end of the episode.
This is basically a summary.
Yes, bro.
This is basically a summary of Islam, okay? So this is Allah. We say there's no God but Allah, and He does all this stuff, okay? And then, yeah.
Do something specific.
Don't do interest. Stay away from Satan. You have certain rights, but they also have rights. A woman, it is true that you have certain rights with regard to your woman, but they also have rights over you. If they abide by your right, to them belongs the right to be fed and clothed in kindness. Do treat your woman well and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. And it is your right that they do not make friends with any of you whom you do not approve, as well as to never commit adultery.
Good.
So,
And no, hang on. I think that, and like going back to what Sean was saying earlier, this is like a quick epilogue, I guess. But going back to what Sean was saying earlier about us becoming more united, I don't think that we'll get rid of all our differences completely, but I think that like we'll be able to, like, we can't, like, the U.S. like can't stand like some Russian policies.
yeah.
I think we'll be able to put those differences aside and work more cohesively, like rationally. Like the fact that we've been able to have this conversation right now is like another like thing that kind of like shows that we're like we can coexist.
How many Muslims and Hindus were? I guess that's different because.
Yeah.
Okay. How many are in 600 when Islam was revealed?
Yeah.
How many Muslims were talking to Hindus?
Oh, I mean, they're so different.
Yeah.
We're in completely different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Christian,
Do they even
the
know about
Abrahamic
Hindus?
dialogue has
I
always.
mean, they probably knew about Hindus, but like so little.
The Abrahamic dialogue has always existed, though.
Yeah.
Those communities are always speaking with each other. And
You're separate.
Thanks for
right?
coming.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks for coming out, bro.
yes,
Appreciate it.
But-
we actually had a good podcast
Yeah,
episode.
that was good.
All right. Yeah, we're done. I'm good.
What if it just didn't record?